Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Justin Borses. Public school teachers often go above and beyond for their students. For years, teachers have put in long hours, staying after school, providing tutoring, extra technology, and giving up their own personal time, and all of that sacrifice is considered normal.
Even though it doesn't pay very well, like, it's so rewarding, and that's what kept me going.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic began, educators have had to adapt to teaching over Zoom and then to teaching in person again, all while helping students who fell behind. According to a survey by the Teachers Union in Los Angeles, 70% of its teachers have thought about quitting. The union says the number of teachers who actually did leave their jobs in 2020 and 2021 increased 38% from the previous year. Retirements rose 12%. The survey of more than 13,000 educators found that almost 60% of teachers reported not being able to afford to live in the communities where they teach. The Economic Policy Institute says teachers earned about 23% less than comparable college graduates in 2021, a record wage gap. Today we ask, with all of those struggles, are teachers still motivated to stay in their jobs? On Point's Lupita Baltazar has more.
Thank you, Justin. And joining me today is two LAUSD teachers, a reading intervention teacher, Alina Simonian, and a second grade teacher, Ramiro Esquivel. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
So we're going to start off with a very important question. So I'm going to start off with you, Alina. So I want to know, what made you want to become a teacher?
I can say that in the beginning, that's not the path that I started with. When I went to school, I was actually at CSUN as a journalism student, and I got my bachelor's degree in journalism, and that didn't pan out. And then I went into another route where to work with students. And that sort of got me into the criminal justice system. I wanted to work with youth who needed help. And little by little, it sort of took its own path. And that's how I ended up working in just non-public schools, helping students with disabilities. And from there on, I decided to get my credentials, and I became a teacher.
Wow. You started off as a journalism student and then you went that route.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, Ramiro, I'd like to know also what made you want to become a teacher?
When I realized that I wanted to become a teacher was when I was working for an after-school program, LA's Best. And I just, while I was doing that, I just asked myself as I was coming to the work site every day, like, what is it that I like, about my job? And I just realized that it was just being around the kids and the little time that I spent with them, because it wasn't too much time, it was only like 3 hours or so. It was just fun. They say the funniest things sometimes, and like just some of them saw me as a role model. And I just think like just seeing it in that way, I just decided that I kind of wanted it to, take it a further step up. Maybe being a teacher will be, something that I was, I guess born to do, not sure. But it took me a while. Like I wasn't 100% sure. However, like I was taking the classes little by little. And then finally, when I reached the end, of all the prerequisites and all that schoolwork, I then took it, much more serious and, went for my BA, liberal studies. And then that's where I'm at right now. And, so far I can say that it has been a good choice. I mean, it does come with a lot of patience, which I am thankful that I do have. So I think that has helped me a lot to really consider to become a teacher. So I think that is why I'm still here.
Wow, very interesting. And following with my other question, a survey from California points out how teachers describe their jobs, and 68% of teachers said it was exhausting. 14% said it was empowering. So what does it feel like to be a teacher now for you? I'll start off with you first, Alina.
I can say it is exhausting and empowering at the same time. The exhausting part is the political arena that you have to fight a lot, which is the organization and the different demands that they place on the teacher, and the different demands that has nothing to do with students per se. The empowering part comes when I am in the classroom and I do what I know is best for my students, meeting their needs, and teaching what based on based on the California standards, what they need to know. Another empowering part is that I even take it beyond because I know that what they need to know based on their grade level, but at the same time, I know there's so much more that they can learn and so much more like sponges they can just grasp everything. So that's what keeps me going. That's what it has kept me going. Um, and that's where I feel the satisfaction that I wake up every morning and I'm like, I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be a lot of challenges, but I'm going to be there because I know that I'm making a difference.
Wow. We really need more teachers like that make a difference and impact in their students. Ramiro, would you like to add anything?
Well, basically, it's, just feeding off of what she said is that, like, yeah, I've only been, my first year teaching, it's only been 30 days or so. And I've already seen, like, the overwhelming aspect about it. I've had an idea of what it was, a lot of planning, a lot of, meeting deadlines and just a bunch of stuff that just ends up piling up while you have all these other things to do. However, the empowering stuff, like she also mentioned, like inside the classroom, just being that specific, um, what's it called? That role model for some of these students who, sometimes they don't like for me, for example, like, some of my students, don't have that male figure in their household and and they do, some of them do need that. So I feel like, some, being able to be that person for them, at least for, the time that they're here in the school, like I really consider that a lot. And it's very rewarding at the end of the day. So despite it being very like overwhelming and exhausting sometimes, at the end of the day, it's, it's all for them and just making like how she said that it's the making a difference is what really is key and what kind of is giving me the push to move forward.
That's awesome to hear that you guys really want to make that difference and impact in your students. So thank you. According to a new survey, since the coronavirus pandemic, 77% of California teachers say things have changed for the worse in their jobs. This is up from 45% previously. This has changed many teachers' perspectives post-pandemic. Has it changed your perspective on being a teacher? I'll start off with you, Alina.
I let me back up a little bit and talk to the COVID time where a lot of teachers needed to do their teaching on Zoom, where all teachers who taught did not have access to their students. It was extremely difficult to do that connection that you would have personally, physically in the classroom. And that's where everything seems to have fallen apart because once you got back, the social emotional portion that the students were missing, it caught up with them. So the students that you had who were first graders, they were still acting as kindergartners. The ones who were third graders, they were acting as second graders, even all the way through high school. And I've spoken to a lot of different teachers at different grade levels and also psychologists that works on our site and everywhere that they do see that huge difference and the impact that the COVID made. So as a teacher, I did see the difference, especially where the amount of behavior that came out of it, that they didn't know how to actually sit down in a classroom and behave in a classroom. So it has changed the teaching somewhat, where now instead of a lot of paper and pencil, because COVID time, Zoom time, everything was done online. Now a lot of more apps have come up where kids are used to being on apps and not used to having paper and pencil and book reading and everything. So it has made the job a little bit harder. I want to say a lot harder, because you're trying to get them away from that screen time and bring them to reality, where it's book and paper and pencil time. And I know that most of the teachers that I speak with do have that experience. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
Yes, it's very interesting. Like you mentioned, they don't use pencil and paper anymore because of the iPads and the technology they have access to. Ramiro, would you like to add something to that? Has it changed your perspective in any way?
For the most part, like I mean, the little that I've seen, just because it's my first year teaching, but I have heard from other teachers like mentioning how the huge difference from like one grade going to the next, how they were missing those specific behavior skills, or just being in person. So they have mentioned a lot where they noticed the difference. And I mean, during that whole pandemic time, like I was a TA, so I mean, I would be assisting the students in a small group over the Zoom and all that. But I mean, even some of them weren't like not even fully participating. So it's like, there was a lot of them where they would miss, they would miss school just because, either their screen was off, or they weren't on the screen was on, but they weren't on, on the actual screen. So it's just, all those days that they missed really impacted their time of learning. So now that they're back in school, not all of them, but some of them do, I can see the little gap that they have due to the whole pandemic. So I agree.
Definitely. And now, following into my next question, Alina, have you ever considered quitting?
um, I was contemplating it for a while, about, I want to say, 8 years ago. And that's when I was doing I was a resource teacher with special education program, and I had already had my credential. But when I talk about the politics and the whole gamut of the whole thing, um, I was told that I cannot do the resource teaching because I don't have the certificate for it. That was when, the proverbial, straw that broke the camel's back. And I was ready. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm just going to go and work in a private school where they're not going to even, ask me, and they would consider my experience and everything. I had already like 25 years. But then when I thought about it, and I just, like prayed on it and everything, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay there. I went back to CSUN. I got that certificate. I had to fight different departments until I got my certificate, and then I was okay. I'm glad that I stayed in, and I have learned a lot more since then, and I'm glad I stayed in.
Yes, thank you for your answer. Um, Now, moving on to another survey by the RAND Corporation, they said that twice as many principals and teachers reported frequent job-related stress as other working adults. Have you ever experienced burnout? If so, what tools do you use to avoid burnout? I'll start off with you, Ramiro.
I think one thing that has been working out for me is just and this also was something too that I thought, well, that I would use during like my time at CSUN. I would just see everything that is due or that is coming up, one thing at a time. Like there's a bunch of stuff that sometimes just comes up, and it's due or it's coming up and all that. And I learned that when we see it as a whole, it just makes you more overwhelmed. And I learned to just to help myself, just relax. You got this. You'll figure it out. And that's another saying like that I really follow and tell myself all the time. I'll figure it out. Like no matter how difficult, how hard it sounds or it seems like, I will eventually figure it out because I've come this far. And, I've done already a bunch of other difficult stuff that, no matter how overwhelmed, how, frustrated it might be or whatnot, at the end of the day, I would eventually figure it out and just take it one day at a time. So that way I help myself to not, not feel too overwhelmed, too stressed. And that has been working, at least for me.
I like that. Like you mentioned, one thing at a time and one day at a time too. Alina, would you like to add something to that?
During the years, have had many situations where it has been overwhelming, where whether it was a parent who you know basically got into my face, or students who misbehaved and physically hurt me. But at the end, I just pray for the situation to resolve itself, for me to gain more patience, to be understanding. And I put myself in the position of whoever it is that I'm dealing with, whether it's a coworker or a principal or a parent or the student. And I try to, whatever the situation is, if there is a way to keep the line of communication open, that's what I do. I'm pretty straightforward. If I'm upset about something, I go to that person. If I know that there's a problem, I don't think, okay, I'm going to solve this on my own. Otherwise, that's it. Um, I try to be the person who sort of goes in there and says, okay, well, this is what I did wrong. Tell me how you saw it. Or if I did something wrong, I apologize and I go from there. So, but most of my time, when I'm really stressed out and I don't know what to do, I just sit down and I just pray, and I give it to God. I'm like, you know what? I just need the guidance. And that's where I go from.
I like that. And so, moving on to my next question, how do you encourage parents to support their children's education? It is challenging to talk to parents who aren't involved. I'll start off with you, Ramiro.
Well, so far, like the little thing that I have been doing, like for example, like on back to school night, I just the few that showed up, I mentioned that this is what's going to be going home every day. This is what they need, to have at their house, for whenever they need it for homework and stuff like that, and also just letting them know different ways for them to communicate with me. So if anything that they don't understand or that they want, to clarify or whatnot, I have those um, resources for them to reach out to me in case they need something or they don't understand a certain homework that goes out. So I try to keep the communication through email or over the phone from the school to the school site, or sometimes when the kids are being dismissed, I make myself available when I'm out there letting the kids go. If there's any parent that wants to pull me to the side and ask me something, I also make myself available that way too, in case they want to tell me in person rather over through email or over the phone.
Alina, would you like to add something to?
Yeah,
Okay.
throughout the years at different grade levels, before this whole pandemic and everything, and Class Dojo, it's a resource that now you can have it just 24/7. It's available. But before that, line of communication is very important to be kept open. I called my parents a lot. I invited them to be involved. And if they weren't, then I would refer them if I saw something that is happening in the child that is going to affect the child negatively. I would keep at it. And some parents did not like that, and I understand because they're working and they're busy, and some of them have night shifts, and some of them come home and they need to sleep. So understanding all that, I try to keep the line of communication open. And then if I had to refer them to any other entity, then that's what I would do in order for them to be able to understand that how important their role is. They're the first teacher in their child's life. the school is the second or the third. So that's what I try to talk to them about.
Definitely. So you guys both mentioned communication is key.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, going on to a very important question, I believe, is we hear so many horrific stories about violence in schools, including mass shootings on campuses, but also neighborhood violence. How do concerns about these threats affect your job? I'll start off with you, Alina.
Actually, I don't have to actually conjecture about this, because where I work, even though it's a safe area, I've been in this school for 4 years. And at the first school that I was with, LAUSD, I was there for 18 years. So during the 18 years, I went through 5 different lockdowns. And during the 4 years here, I have gone through 6 different lockdowns. It is, it really shakes you to the core, where you're like, okay, I know I'm not safe, but I have to keep my composure because there are students that I have to take care of. And then that's where you start following the policy, whatever it is that you have established. And one time that we had that violence happen outside, and there were police going and coming, and the students were in my classroom at the end of the day. The parents were scattered, and to see the students start crying and shaking and feeling that they're not safe is the most vulnerable position that a teacher is left at, or any individual is left at, because then you start thinking, okay, what are their parents feeling? So I have my own opinions about this. I'm not going to go into it, but it should be the job of the government to take care of this, because the schools are doing what the schools need to do. We are to keep the kids safe. We have the plan and everything, the safety plan and everything in place. Other than that, it's not something to just say, oh, well, talk to your kids. Well, yeah, we talk to the kids, but where's that going to go from there?
Yes. Thank you for your response. Ramiro, is there something you would like to add to that question?
Well, I mean, the school where I'm at, the neighborhood isn't that bad, but it's also not the best either. But I mean, thankfully, the time that I've been here, not much lockdowns have happened. But I mean, as far as if we were to ever have one, in the school or whatever type of lockdown it would be, I just, I just try to reassure the students that I'm the one that's gonna be, taking, making sure that everybody's okay, so you don't have nothing to worry about, and just reminding them, making them feel that, that they have someone, in case something were to ever happen, they know that that myself will be the one always, making sure that they're safe. So just, it's not something that I probably don't mention quite often, but when we do have, fire drills or earthquake drills and all that, that's when the conversation does come out, and, just reminding them hey, if this were to ever happen, this is what we do. Don't worry. I will make sure that you guys are safe, and, just constantly reminding them, so that way they, they don't feel that fear of they're, scared and all that. Because even with just hearing a fire alarm, there's just some of them just start, getting all nervous. And, even when it's just a practice drill, some of them I have to remind hey, this is just practice. So don't think that it's real. This is just in case, if it were to happen. So, I mean, just with the alarm setting them off, I can just imagine if it were to actually happen. But just reassuring them, letting them know that, hey, I'm here for you guys, and I'm gonna make sure that you guys will be safe.
What are your hopes for the future as a teacher? I'll start off with you, Alina.
Hi. That's the hardest question you've given me. Hopes and future. To be able to truly teach students in a manner where their needs are really met, not only on standards, not only on paper, not only based on what the organization dictates. I'm working with a lot of newcomers, different backgrounds, different nationalities. And when they're dropped into a classroom, 5th grade, 3rd grade, and they don't speak the language, I'm thinking, how does that make them feel? How are we supposed to reach them? And yes, there are a lot of after school programs, but what about during the classroom, during class time, during school time? What are we doing to reach them? What are we doing to make sure that they are learning the English language within a month or two? And there was another program LAUSD had, but not anymore. That's for another time. And my hope and future is for us to be able to build a school community where truly, truly all children are taken care of. All of their education is really met instead of just passing them on with, grade to grade to grade, and they're not able to read.
Definitely, I agree. Ramiro, would you like to add to that question?
So definitely, I would just want to be the most effective teacher that I can be, to, again, just make a difference to those students that really need it. And just the hopes of, one day, as when they get old, later on in high school, whatever, they remember that one teacher. Because I have my teachers where I remember, and one or two things about them, and that I thank them for. So I just want to hopefully, I'm able to at least have just one student at least remember me and be like, hey, I remember 2nd grade, that teacher, Mr. Esquivel, he taught me this, or he made me feel this way. And so I think I'll hopefully just be the best teacher that I can.
Awesome, I like that. Well, that's all the time we have for today. So I want to thank you both, Alina and Ramiro, for being here today. This was very insightful and coming from great teachers like you both. You are watching On Point, and we'll be right back.
STEM is everywhere, like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that could be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker hordes.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at shecanstem.com.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. You can watch us on LA 36 and Santa Clarita Valley Television. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Justin Borses.